Welcome back to Trading 360. I'm Nicole Petalides, live in New York City. Thanks for being with us. It's time for the Big Three. 3 stocks, 3 charts, 3 trades. Ben Lichtenstein will take us through the charts, and here to take us through the trades, Mike Shorr, Director of Trading Education at Prosper Trading Academy. Thank you both for being here. So first up, we're taking a look at advanced micro devices. It's actually up about 3% today, but you're watching that resistance level at the 200-day moving average. Tell me, Mike, a little bit about advanced micro and why it jumped on your radar in the first place.
Yeah, so it is. We're at a big inflection point here. So, two things. One, if you're looking for something in your short portfolio, this is probably a good space to do it. There's a lot of supply chain issues. We've seen that. We've also seen now China getting into the mix with the whole global thing going on with Russia, Ukraine. That could bring a lot of more supply chain stuff in there. So my thoughts are a lot different over the 200-day moving average, which after it jumped this morning, but anywhere below that. So I'm looking at that 216 area for a downside play. Not that it's going to go crashing down, but a more of a soft landing type of play on using a put calendar.
And so, Ben, your thoughts here as you take a look at AMD.
Hey, good morning, Nicole, and hey, Mike. This is a stock. Shares have been under pressure for a while now. It's one that appears to have bottomed right now, but it's really not building on that at this point. The 60-minute really says it all in some ways in terms of the move that we've seen. We're talking about from 164, just shy of 165, at the end of December, end of November, beginning of December last year. But take a look, because we sold off all the way down to 99. And I want to point out after, touching off on that 99 level, we've been mostly sideways. Now, one thing that I think is interesting is you can see how the Jan low, again, 99.35, we were unable to take that out in February, but did take that out in March as we kind of formed a bit of a double bottom around this 100 level, and but still holding above, again, that Jan low. But interestingly enough, with the broader market posting new highs for the month of March, here you can see how AMD is kind of lagging behind in terms of that move up. Here's the March highs up around this 122 level. So again, slowed in terms of some of the momentum to the downside. You can see that as we've started to consolidate, but really no rejection of these lower levels yet. And again, a stock that's not really rebounding. Now, as we take a step away from the intraday, the hourly, you can see, as Mike mentioned here, we're hanging out right around the 200-day moving average. That's this purple line, just got above the 50-day moving average, so something to keep an eye on here. You can see that well-defined double bottom around 100 that I mentioned on the hourly time frame. You can see how volumes tapering off here, but if we see some weakness at this point, we could be talking about a death cross in the coming days and weeks. And speaking of weeks, take a look here as we've seen a well-defined trend environment to the upside here. This recent spike up to the 164 level, pandemic related. You can see how, again, the fact that we were able to hold up above 100, I think, is key at this point. We could be in the process of setting up here and forming a very large area of consolidation here. Again, 100 to 164, but not as really well defined here as of recent. Again, it's a little bit more clouded as of recent than what we had seen in terms of this really well-defined areas of value that have been forming in an upper and upper level, higher and higher level. And you can see how we spent very little time relative up around that, again, that all-time high up around 165.
Yeah, I want to get your final thoughts here as we take a look at this, Mike, and your trade.
Yeah, it hurts me to want to short AMD. I mean, I love the company. It's just there are forces outside of that. And so this is kind of a bearish light sort of play, where with that put calendar, yes, you do have short delta to it, but you also have that decay. So implied volatility should keep its levels at these price levels in the underlying. And so that's why I'm going to play with the put calendar.
Right. Do you understand what he's saying? I mean, it hurts him to short. I love that. That's a good phrase. Final thought, Ben, and then we'll get to the next one.
Well, again, I think right now being in this kind of pattern that we've seen where we've just kind of been developing to the east, it hasn't really seen a lot of conviction. I think, again, considering the broader market and the rally we've seen, the fact that the NASDAQ, the ES, Dow, the Russell now are above the 50-day moving average, nearing that 200-day moving average in the case of two of those four majors. Yeah, it surprises me that AMD hasn't really been able to participate to the same extent to the upside, so I can see why Mike has his eye on this position or this strategy.
Understood. Okay, let's get to the next one. EVgo. You were talking about a pullback. It is up about 4% today. Tell me why this one is jumping out at you, Mike.
Well, I mean, the technical and fundamental stories are great with this one. Obviously, with high oil prices hitting everybody's pocket, more and more people are considering EV alternatives. This is a great auxiliary market to that. Of course, investing in something like Tesla or Lucid, way, way more expensive than at these levels. EVgo, I know, let's just say 6 months ago, I had clients asking me, you know, if we could get to 50, 75, 100. Well, we're not now, but there's a lot of room to the upside in this space, and this is a great technical setup for it.
Okay. What do you think, Ben, when you take a look at this chart?
I think Mike and I seem to be in line today in terms of some of these stocks, these names we're looking at here, because, you know, we were just talking about AMD and its inability to, while it seems like it's bottomed out recently, again, around that 100 level, but unable to really add to or build on that bottoming pattern and get something going to the upside. So again, that's what has me a little bit concerned about AMD, especially in we consider relative to the broader market as mentioned. But take a look at EVgo here. You can see another name similarly that recently bottomed down to $7 from 1957 back in the middle of November. And well, since the beginning of this year, we really have been able to start to build on some of that momentum here that we've seen off those lows. So again, right now kind of balancing around this $12 level, working our way back up and through the middle of that range that we've been in basically for the last 2 weeks. If we could get up and through 13, it'd be continuation of the pattern that we've seen off this $7 low again, as value has now been moving higher and higher. And well, we've taken out some key areas that were established on the way down. I want to step back from this hourly time frame and point out how as you look at the daily, you'll see some of the surges to the upside that have been short-lived. So what's interesting about this is we're just kind of grinding higher in terms of this move right now, maybe a little bit more sustainable than some of those big spikes that we've seen. As you can see that have quickly diminished or have seen very little follow through. Maybe there's been some selling going on up there, but I also wanted to point out as you move away from the intraday time frame, take a look at the weekly. Speaking to the point here in terms of the strength we've seen off the January lows down around $7. We've seen a nice run up. We're talking 9 weeks to the upside. And then, hey, not only was that $7 level important in terms of most recent lows, as we pointed out on this hourly time frame, but going all the way back to last fall, it looks like that's where they bottomed as well. So again, a good opportunity for investors to sort of build on some gains here right now that we've seen off a bit of a double bottom pattern here, and potentially again get this get this one recharged a little bit, I guess is the best way of putting it, back up and through some key areas of resistance that still lie above.
Right. And you know, it's interesting because I saw your trade there, Mike, when you were looking at the different risk scenarios, but at the same time, fundamentally, you like this one and what it brings to the table, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I always lean on the technicals more than the fundamentals, but definitely you want a broad scope of the fundamentals. So definitely the space intrigues me. This is a really low risk. You know, I'm looking at that 12-14 call spread. I'm looking actually for a little bit of a pullback. I use the 20-day moving average for intermediary pullbacks on a daily basis, and that's where I'm looking for that entry. So that 12-14 call spread just out to April, paying 45 cents for that thing.
Understood. Okay, let's get to, okay, last but not least, let's look at Airbnb. This one, when we look at Airbnb, obviously one that did well during the pandemic. Now with the reopening, maybe will continue to do well. You tell us. But you're looking at the bullish breakout. It's a little higher today. Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, so this is actually a trigger entry. I'm looking for, my price was 168.56. Not exactly sure where we are this morning on that, but it's consolidation on the daily chart, consolidation, and then breakout entry above that. It gets through some nice resistance point if we do trigger that price, and then obviously that still has a lot of room to the upside.
Yeah, what was your price? It's at 167.38. You were saying, where is it right now? What was your price that you're looking at?
168.56 is my trigger entry.
Okay, so about another buck. Tell me, Ben, your thoughts.
Yeah, they're just below that level right now. They got up to 168.16 this week. but since then it's been, as Mike mentioned, kind of in a bit of a chop, holding right now at 167.25, so up around 2%. But, this chart's a bit of a mess. We just looked a minute ago in terms of what we've seen as far as EV go, recovering off some recent lows, and a similar pattern here in terms of movement back higher after bottoming out around 130. You can see, again, as we've moved all the way up to, well, recently 168. But again, as Mike mentioned, we have been a little bit sideways. I like the idea in terms of waiting for a breakout. In this instance, I can see why Mike has the sight set on the breakout to the upside, because again, that'd be in continuation of the most recent trend environment off these lows. So we always talk about continuation more likely than change. That would be a vertical move up that Mike would be buying into. So again, you'd be looking for some high conviction. In that case, you'd be talking about, well, something similar to what we saw, if you remember, Friday last week as we broke up and through the 156 level. Again, out of an area of consolidation that had been forming. And we had that high conviction trade. It was on the hourly time frame. You can see throughout the day Friday, for the most part, into the afternoon session before it kind of tapered off. Higher highs and higher lows. You're seeing good conviction, participation to the upside, basically what you're looking for in a breakout instance. So again, should we see that play here, your viewers know exactly what to expect. Or again, oftentimes it's telling when you don't see that as well. It's something to watch for. Simply put, again, that conviction with a breakout type trade. One thing I'm also noticing, we're holding above the 200-day moving average. That's that purple line. We are above the 50-day moving average. RSI here, Mike, has a little room to expand to the upside. If we get something going to the upside, ultimately that could favor the long side here as well. And then lastly, I said Airbnb was a bit of a mess. Aside from that trend environment we've seen on the more intraday, look at the weekly. It really says it all, kind of in the middle of the range that we've seen over the last year or so, and no real lean one way or the other. So I like Mike's approach here in terms of trading a more granular chart, a more granular look at a potential breakout here, because when you're looking at the weekly, there's not a lean one way or the other here. So you have to kind of pare it down a little bit time frame wise. Unfortunately there, you're a little bit more susceptible to some of the ups and downs and the head fakes that occur and take place on that more granular look at time or price over time.
Yeah, those head fakes, I mean, that's actually a big deal, because as a trader, those are tough to stomach sometimes. Mike, your final thoughts here on Airbnb, your trade, as we're wrapping it up?
Yeah, I mean, the trade is a broken wing fly. The 77.5, 185, 187.5. So I'm looking for a move. But I think more importantly, especially for these upside plays, you don't want to try and pick bottoms here, because that is going to be really, really tough to do. But when you get a conviction trade where the market is kind of doing the hard work for you, that's what I love these things. They're the ones that are bringing it up there. We'll just, I don't need to be the first one in, but I want to be in there for the bigger move that is potentially coming. That's been my take on all these plays that I've been making over the last 3-4 weeks.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, your big picture. How much does your big picture on how you feel about the market factor into the trade ideas, Mike?
It's difficult because, you go through all the stocks that, wow, I wish I could have bought it here, here, and here. Well, now you got it well below those levels. So you just have to, I'm not carrying a lot of positions here. I'm finding a lot more opportunity intraday because we're getting back and forth trade. So I kind of need to be really, really convinced on something where I'm going to be holding it for a period of, let's just say, 6 or 9 trading days. That's usually my typical time frame for these type of things. So that's, I need the market to do the work for me, and then I'll just jump on and say me too later on.
Good to see you, Mike. Thank you for that. Mike Shorr, Prosper Trading Academy. Ben Lichtenstein today. A great look there at the big three, Airbnb, and we also had AMD and EVgo. Thank you, gentlemen. Great big three today.